So, welcome back to SIHH Live, where in this TV studio during the week we are going to meet and listen to the people of fine watchmaking, haute horlogerie, and to their ideas. This session is devoted to the Maison Ressence, very innovative one, present here in the Carré des Horlogers. And the session is going to be hosted by Ben Clymer, the founder of HORLOGERIE. Ben, the stage is yours.
Thank you, sir. Is the microphone working?
Yes.
Great. So first of all, I want to thank you guys all for coming here today. We have two esteemed guests with us, and two people I'm proud to call friends. The first we have is Benoit Mintiens, who's the founder of Ressence, a wonderful innovator, an industrial designer, and I think somebody who's really shaping the watch world. Sir, thank you. And then with him, we have his collaborator on this project, Mr. Tony Fidel, a legendary designer, entrepreneur, credited, among other things, with founding the iPod, along with Steve Jobs and the folks at Apple in the early 2000s, and then going on to leave Apple and create Nest, which popular in Europe or mostly North America?
Yeah, there's great sales actually.
Great sales in Europe. Yeah. Nest has become certainly the leading kind of smart thermostat in the United States for sure. Ended up selling it to Google and stayed at Google for a few years after that as well. Yeah. And so Tony, I've known for a few years, is also a very serious watch collector. And I think it's so fascinating to see somebody with Tony's background working with somebody like Benoit on a watch. But this is a different watch, and we're going to get to that. But before that, I think we have a short video to play.
What if I could put on my mechanical watch in the morning, or even after a month, and it would always show the right time? I mean, not without caring about it, but without having to think about it. Always on time, always my time.
So first things first, that is or is not you in that video? Sure,
I've had that question a few times already.
Modeled after you?
Much better looking.
Yeah.
Much better looking.
Modeled after
Same
you.
hair, but that's
so I think the first question is, and I think many of you know why we're here today. We're here to discuss eCrown. And so I think, Benoit, do you want to start with what is eCrown and how did this whole project begin?
eCrown is, the name stands for electronic crown. So it only concerns the crown function of the watch. Yeah. It's still a fully mechanical watch. The gear train between the barrel and the hands is direct. There is no interaction or no interference from the technology eCrown. But it is an answer to 176 years of no evolution on the crown. The crown is that old.
Sure.
And with the technologies we have today, we thought that we could improve a lot dramatically, even the user-friendliness, the convenience of a mechanical watch.
And Tony, how did you get involved with this project?
Well, first I was a avid watch collector, 5 years ago or so, and then when I immediately saw the Type 3 when it first came out, and I read about it actually on HORLOGERIE, I was like, liquid-filled watch. I looked at it and was, wow. And then it said liquid-filled, and I was like, oh my God, I know exactly what he's doing. Yeah. And that was because back in the 90s, when we were first doing tablets and pre-iPhone things, we had an LCD and a touchscreen, and you had parallax between it because you had an air gap. So we were playing with gels and liquids to fill it so that it would look like, it was the surface.
Like a Type 3.
Like a Type 3, it would come up to the top. And I was like, oh my God, I got to have that watch. And whoever that watchmaker is, designer, I was like, I have to know more about it. And that was the whole genesis of how I kind of approached Benoit. I said, I need to know who you are. And we, through via the channels, and we just started corresponding. And then I was just collecting and continuing to collect. And then
I had the idea to do a watch with eCrown technology. Yeah. I didn't invent the name by then, but sure. I knew what it had to do. And I thought, I have a client that is the incarnation of tech and mechanics, because Tony is not only collecting Ressence watches. I think you must have a watch from each brand that is here about.
We're just about, yeah.
But,
or more than one.
So I thought he's the right guy for this project. Why? Because for me, electronics was also far away from what I was doing every day. And I needed to have this confidence that, yeah, the gamble I would do with this project, introducing a microcontroller controller in a mechanical watch, wasn't so obvious. Seeing the context.
Yeah, and before we get into how this works and the details of this project, I want to make sure that everybody understands exactly what this is. And Tony gave me a very concise kind of analysis of what this is, and it was.
Yeah, so let me get it to you. So, you know, being a collector, and you have, you know, when it first started with the crown, you wound it. It was a manual wound watch. And then the innovation happened that it became automatic. You could use kinetic energy and you could wind it. But even when you start to become a collector, you're like, wait a second, I can't keep all these watches completely timed, synced, and everything else. So what do? I buy a little robot. It's called a watch winder. And that watch winder just keeps that time, hopefully, what have you. And so when Benoit asked me about this, I was like, oh, wait a second. What we're doing is we're making a new version of a watch winder, but we're putting it inside the watch in a very, very different way. And so that's the thing. I was like, oh, wow, it can help me as a collector, but it can also be really great for many other reasons.
But it does a lot more than just winding.
Exactly.
Actually, it doesn't wind.
It doesn't wind. That's what's so great. It's a spin. It's a little robot, but it does it differently. So it's really cool.
So now that you have a fundamental understanding of it, Benoit, do you want to walk us through all that it can do and how it does it?
I'll be concise, and I invite you all to come and take a look if you'd like to know more. So for us, again, it was about user experience and convenience, and not forget the performance. I guess most of you will have had that experience when you need to be really on time. Really, it's a matter of survival. Do you check your mechanical watch or do you check your phone? And that is for me not normal. And so I thought bringing together mechanics, where we all have a lot of empathy for and emotions, with precision and trust, that would be the basis of this project. We have created a cluster that's called the eCrown cluster. There's a lot of technology in it. Mainly, you have to know how late it is on the watch, what is it is displaying, and then you have to adapt it to the time you want to get to. So this technology does this. I said in the beginning, it is a purely mechanical watch, and the gear train between the barrel and the hands is not interrupted. And here you can see the eCrown places in the drawing, it's in between, but in fact it's the closest concept in mechanics is a differential to the principle. The watch is also, the technology is also self-sufficient. So there is no, because it's e-crown, electronic crown, electronics needs some electricity to work, and the electricity comes from the movement of your wrist. So we have also designed a generator, and if you use it really too much, because the generator is for normal use, we have a backup that is photovoltaic cells. So the first thing you do when you have your eCrown watch is to activate it. What does that mean? That's in normal terms, that would be pulling out the crown. And that, when you do that, when you double tap the watch, it will give you a little signal by moving the minute hand, just that you know, okay, I'm activated. And the first thing the watch does is to see, okay, I have on the one hand the position of the hands, because it measures it. It knows, okay, the minutes are at 5 and the hours at about 2. And actually, I should be at 10 past, so it will adapt the time to the correct time. To have that correct time, you have to once put it into the watch. And this goes manually, because a Ressence watch is still a mechanical watch. There's still a kind of crown on it. but we don't have a physical crown since years. You see the Type 3 did already not have a crown. But the back of the watch is the crown. So you can turn the back, and by doing that, you change the time. And the Type 2 also has that. And by setting the time manually, after you've done that, again, you double tap the dial, and the watch registers the time at that moment. So it knows exactly the time you want it to be in. So the digital time is then programmed. The watch is also self-regulating. That means that while you're wearing it, it will check if if the watch is running well. That's the trust aspect. You're always sure it's on time. If it's not on time, if there is a technical issue with the movement or whatever, the watch will put itself at midnight. So you know, if it's not midnight on my watch, I'm sure it's correct. Otherwise, it's on midnight. And, sorry, what I also want to say is that it's also self-setting, and that is probably the most spectacular aspect of the watch, is when it ran out of power reserve, because it's still an automatic watch, after 36 hours, it stops running when you lay it on the table. From the moment you pick it up, you put it back on your wrist, you strap it on, the e-crown technology detects you are manipulating it, and it will automatically set the right time for you. You don't have to do it anymore.
It's great for a collector.
And the next slide is for you, Tony.
Okay, and also because we're not just a collector, but also a global traveler, you want to have multi-time zones, right? So it's great to be able, you know, today you have to go and you have to change the time zone or get a GMT or what have you, watch. But what's great about it is you can have 2 time zones in the watch. So you can actually shift time zones. So you can start in one and land in another, double tap, and then you can go to the next time zone. So you don't have to set it. So it's that simple. So you can have 2 time zones, and I don't have to sit here and twist and do all that stuff. It'll be already pre-programmed at the watch.
And there is a 3rd time zone on the Type 2 that is a non-assisted time zone. So the e-crown does not do anything. Some people really love mechanics, and I understand because I also love it. And if you decide, okay, I don't want the e-crown to interfere, you can just put it on no e-crown, and it will be like a normal mechanical watch. We first explained you that you can set the watch with the back and you can program it, but it's even easier with an app. We have developed the e-crown app, and with the e-crown app, you don't even have to set it with the back. You don't even have to take off the watch. You double tap the watch, you take your phone, and you just set in the city you want the time zone 1 to be in, and the city you want time zone 2 to be in. You can also choose a geolocalization with the app. You just say, okay, I want the time from where I am now. You push that button, and the watch will set the time where you are.
And it will set it to second accuracy.
It's hyper precise because with the manual setting you can only set minutes and hours, but you cannot set the seconds like most mechanical watches. But with the app, you have the second information from the atomic clock. And so you send the second information into the watch, and the watch has a system that can set the second also. It doesn't set it at 60, it sets it where you are, so at the minute. So you don't have to wait 15 seconds to get to 0. It will do it immediately, it will calculate and compensate for it. That's electronics, of course, you can do a lot with it. And so we think we combine the best of both worlds.
Yeah. So I think another analogy that we heard yesterday from somebody on your team is that in some ways this is a little bit like a modern car. So in the early days it was a manual transmission, manual wound watch obviously. Then we went into an automatic transmission which didn't give you much control but did everything for you. And now today with most high-end cars you have the opportunity to shift the gears yourself with a paddle. And would you say that's a fair analogy of how we're
It's a fair analogy, and I want to add that the Type 2 has 3 in 1. So you can still manually shift, you can have a full automatic, or you can have it by doing it with your hands, setting it hand, so it's a kind of in-between situation, but it's a very good analogy. Sure. Someone said it's the Porsche with the PDK.
Sure.
You drive faster with the PDK than without.
Sure.
So you're more performant with it than without.
Yeah. And Tony, how did you, or I should say, what part of this project were you most closely involved with?
Well, I was most closely involved, been along the whole way, but at the very beginning was the first discussions, and it was really about, well, we could try these things electronic. Like we were brainstorming. There's all kinds of, you see it seems simpler now, but we had probably, I don't know, 20 different ideas on the table of how to put this together, and then there was pros and cons on the electronic side, pros and cons on the mechanical side.
The user side.
On the user side as well, and how to do the user interface. And so all of that architecture and trying to figure out what will work. So I would say, let's do this. And then Benoit would go, that's going to be a problem mechanically. And then vice versa would happen. He's like, let's do this electron. I'm like, don't go there. Let me tell you why. So it was great to be able to work with someone who's been, decades of experience to be able to, kind of leap ahead. Saying we're going to take the best of both worlds and figure out and kind of shoot the gap, right. And really understand the benefits of both and get rid of the cons of both. And because today, certain smartwatches, you got to charge them every day.
Right.
Right? Well, we didn't, that's not a mechanical watch, right? And that's not going to be a nice robot inside. So those are the kind of things we wanted to make sure we got rid of, but bringing the benefits for the user.
And Benoit, for you, as somebody that works mostly by themselves, as an individual designer and creator, how was it working with somebody like Tony?
Well, for me, it gave me a lot of confidence, as I said, and it was also nice to have someone that thinks differently, because an industrial designer is not a tech guy.
I feel like I've heard that line before. So.
So no, it was an enriching experience, and the most important aspect for me was the confidence it gave me in doing the project, because I had a backup guy, in case I was stuck with my electronic stuff. He was there, and I had it a few times that I had to call him, Tony, I have a problem, you got to help me here.
And like you said, we work on the UI, UX, as well as the patents, right? Because this is incredible patents. Some stuff that was absolutely surprising to me, and you should go back on a slide on, is talk about the solar cells and the louvers.
Yep.
Like there's a lot of other details here that we're not going over. Let's go to that. There it is.
Yeah, for example, I don't know if the mic still works. Yep. One of the issues, of course, was this autonomy of the watch. It is very important. We are in a high luxury, or no, fine watchmaking. And in fine watchmaking, it makes no sense to have to plug your watch. It's just not conceivable in this environment. So we wanted something that was totally autonomous from an energy point of view, as a automatic movement is autonomous in a daily use. And so for the daily use, comparable to an automatic movement, we have the kinetic generator. But if you go above it, if you, for example, you leave the watch for more than 150 days, even the small battery that is inside will go down, and then you need something to load it again, and that's why we have these shutters. And behind the shutters, there is a custom-built triple junction cell. It's basically a photovoltaic cell, especially made for us.
A special one from a satellite. These aren't your typical solar cells. These are actually satellite solar cells, so they get a lot of energy even indoors, so they don't have to be outdoors. But they're indoor efficient solar cells. But the cool thing is these louvers. You gotta talk about the louvers.
The louvers, it's a nightmare to make. They are 2 millimeters by 3 millimeters. They have axles that are 0.15 millimeters.
And they do this.
And they are 10 in a circle. I invite you to come and take a look. I'm sorry I don't have a video of it. But it is, it's very nice to see. It's magical to see them.
On this one, they're open right now, but when they're closed, you don't see the solar cell.
Yeah.
So you have that,
it's like,
that.
It's like on this image, actually. Yeah. So when they're closed, they're like that.
So that was like one of those really cool things where it's like, we got to use the triple junction. Then you're like, but we can't have it seen.
I don't want
it seen. Yeah. So then we'd like, okay,
I don't want a mechanical watch with solar cells on it. That's just not okay, yeah?
Right?
So how many of those type of conversations were there, where somebody wanted something, the other one was like, no way?
Oh.
We had some.
Some?
Yeah, but that was the fun thing.
That is good, huh?
Because we were like, oh, when you saw the two things, it was like kinetics or solar cell,
Yeah.
because we were like arguing between both, and then it turned out we needed both. Yeah. So it was all of these really, and then we threw out a lot of stuff too, because it was going to be just this crazy module that we're going to insert in other watches. Remember that discussion?
Good idea. It's a good business model.
So yeah, we had all kinds of other models for how this thing was going to work. So this was, when you see it, it's 2+ years of a lot of work. Really, you know, these guys and his team did tons of it. But to have this kind of fun and to see the inside of your business from where I'm from, you know, it's just, it's fascinating to be able to step into it, at least as a
we made a few openings in the dial, because Ressence dials are usually very closed. Also to see a bit more inside, so there are some windows in it where you see the gears, where you see the ball bearings, because all the discs, this is also new on the Type 2, every disc is running on ball bearings, and it's just 0.6. You gotta have glasses to see them, but you see them, and it's very, very beautiful. Mechanically, it's also very beautiful.
But the holes are for the antenna. So we can actually get the Bluetooth.
There's one hole for the antenna.
Yeah. So there was all this balance of what does the electronics need, what do the mechanics need, and so it's fun, fascinating.
So I want to make sure we have time to let the audience ask questions, but a few more for me first. Sure. I think, Tony, this will be a question that I'm sure we'll get from the audience, so I'll go ahead and ask it. What was it like working on this project versus some of your larger scale projects, Nest, Apple, iPhone, things like that?
Well, obviously, this was, you know, we were on, it was very similar in a way, you know, because we had the best of both worlds and could bring all the experience. So yeah, in a way, the design process, the technologies that we could bring to bear, you know, typically when you're in, you have tons of constraints, like, well, like Apple wanted to do OLED screens a long time ago, but it was until the industry caught up with the number of volumes that it needed to produce OLEDs until Apple could adopt them. Here, when we're making smaller things, we could use the most cutting-edge technology, because we're not going to make 1 million of them, maybe one day. But right now, we can get started and use the absolute cutting edge, and we can pick and choose the best stuff. So that's really a great thing, because a lot of times in the high volume, really high volume, you have to wait 5 years or 4 years for the industry to catch up.
And also the price of components.
The price of components is also
watchmaking
different.
Is a little less
sensible. Less price sensitive.
A little less.
Little less price sensitive.
And so speaking of that, and we know this is a concept watch that will be out sometime later this year, do we have any idea on price?
Well, you know, we don't have a price yet. Yeah. Would I make a price calculation based on the prototypes? I think we could buy houses with it. But it's a Ressence price, as we quote it. So we have a certain price bracket, and we want to stay in that price bracket. So, and of course, it's more the expensive Ressences.
Sure.
But still, I think very okay when I look at the Carré des Horlogers. So.
Very okay?
Yeah, very okay.
Great. And so I guess, you know, this watch is so innovative in so many ways, and seeing two kind of great innovators come together is amazing. It can do so much. Is there anything that you wanted it to do that you just couldn't figure out?
Well, you know,
I have some ideas, but
as we know,
the next one, huh?
We got to keep the surprises, because hopefully we're going to continue to do this in the years to come, because we're going to keep. I want to keep pushing the edge. I hope Benoit does as well.
I remember calling Tony when I was in an airport, and I said, Tony, I saw this, and I think we should think about it. And wait.
Focus. Let's just do this one now. That's the wonderful thing. I think we understand that what a roadmap might look like the next 5 years, actually.
Sure. So there won't be any planned obsolescence with these Ressence watches?
But luckily, it's always manual. It's fully manual, so you can. It always works.
It's the whole idea of this watch. In 20 years, it will still run the same as your previous generations of automatic gearboxes.
Sure.
They still drive these cars.
Right.
So it's autonomous completely. We have the app, that's true, but you don't need the app to do everything you want to do. Yeah. Even if apps don't exist anymore.
Great.
Yeah, when we have brain implants, we'll make the Ressence brain implants for it.
So we have 5 minutes left. I'd love to open up the floor to any questions from the audience for either Benoit or Tony.
Anyone?
Any questions?
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Sir. Oh.
So this is in concept mode now, but you're obviously looking to bring it to market. Is there anything you can share about whether your servicing of the watch changes at all given the complications of it, or how would that aspect work?
Yeah. Tony is wearing a Type 3. I'm wearing a Type 5. These are oil-filled watches. It's a mechanical watch, but with oil inside. It's also the only brand that does that. Even in history, the guys from Panerai even told me they never did that. But those watches also have to come back to us to do the service, at least for the oil section of the watch, because it's so particular to do this. There's a procedure to avoid having bubbles in the watch because we have a bellows system. It's quite it's exotic for watchmakers to do this, and it's going to be the same. The time module where you have the embedded e-crown system will be something we will do, and the mechanical part, so the movement and probably the kinetic generator, these are things most watchmakers can do if they are trained a little bit. So I think we will stay in that configuration. But for larger markets, some of our distributors, they go a bit further. We do trainings and things like that, but depends a bit.
Great. Any other questions?
Questions?
Great. I guess one final question would be, now that you guys have worked together, would you guys considering doing another line together, like a totally separate brand? This is obviously under your brand. Could there be a spin-off line, perhaps? It's an idea.
Let's talk, huh?
It's gone really well for the last 2 years. We'll see where this goes. This is for me, this is a crazy, fun project to.
You want to participate?
Sure.
Yeah, come on, let's all make it happen. Let's see what happens. No, because look, hopefully this is, there's the, kind of this is the mark of like, maybe a lot of other people are going to start looking at this going, yeah, you can actually think about having these little robots inside, and they still are that same kind of part of this show, part of this industry, without going, oh my God, it's a smartwatch and feeling threatened.
Yeah.
That's not what this was about at all. This was about trying to continue, as you said, moving forward the technology, and we do it in everything, but the crown also needs to get innovated.
It's all about user. We are a brand that is driven by the user, not by the technicity of watchmaking, because of my background. And so we look from the user, what can we do to provide a product that is more relevant to him, that is more appealing, more convenience, etc., etc., etc.
Would you guys ever consider licensing this technology to other brands? If Patek came to you tomorrow and said, we want to try using this in our new Aquanaut.
That's what I wanted to do, but Tony said it's a lousy idea, so maybe I can do it with you.
Yeah.
I said the first time.
Okay,
I said the first time. I said
right.
to get it out the door, right?
Yeah,
we got to get it out. We got to be focused. We got to make sure we soup to nuts, and then we'll figure out after that, right?
That's right.
Great.
So, yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much. Tony, Benoit, we really appreciate the time, and thank you all for joining
Cool.
today.
Thank you. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, all three. This ends the program of the day in the studio. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be back 10:30 a.m. with a presentation by the Fondation de l'Horlogerie of their new app for learning about watchmaking and all the brands in the salon. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. See you tomorrow. Thank you.